Okay.
Okay, so we are live now. I just got to go and I can hear myself in the background again.
Huh. I'm hearing you exactly the same. How about, can you hear me?
Yeah, well, it depends on the setting. Yeah, I can hear you fine. It just depends on the setting when a person's have a lot of people to save the latency. Oh, I lost your sound there.
Uh-oh. No, I'm here.
Okay. Oh, I heard you there that time. Okay. All right, you're back. So basically, yeah, just sometimes people put earphones in or headphones on and plug them in. That way they don't hear the the echo back. But I'm only hearing it very slightly, so we should be okay. We should be fine. But anyways, like I said,
Okay.
so we're live now, and there's a few people have already joined, but there'll be more people join as the conversation continues on. But anyways, I just wanted to mention that Karen is someone from ThinkSpot that I had met through ThinkSpot. This is just another person. Like I say, I'm really interested in hearing what people have to say on that particular platform because I recognize that the type of people that are gravitating to that platform are people that are inquisitive and curious and want to discuss big ideas and big problems and issues that are facing most of us in the entire world, not just the Western world today. So I'm just going to give Karen a real quick minute here so she can introduce herself and describe what. Oh, sorry. Yeah, stay close to the mic here and describe what she was interested in terms of this conversation that we're going to be having today. So go ahead, Karen.
Hi. Well, what made me interested in your conversation was your statement that there is no such thing as legitimate government. And this morning, as I was reviewing the post, I saw that essentially you and I do not define government in the same way. I mean, we're defining it in radically different ways. And I understand why you would
But okay, before
define
you,
it that way,
well, no, but
because that's what
that's the
it
thing.
does. It's an operational.
Oh, I was just sorry. I was just trying to interject before you continue on because I don't get to decide what the meaning of government is. I don't go. That's the thing. That's the problem with a lot of people today. They think that they can define it. There's dictionaries that give us the actual meanings. And the reason why, as with every language a person speaks, the reason why we can communicate with each other is because all the words and terms that we use have implied express meanings. Now, I know today, especially with a lot of postmodernists, they believe that everything is subjective and they can just interpret words to mean whatever they decide. I go based on what the actual defined meaning is based on the English language, whether you go through the Oxford Dictionary, the Webster's Dictionary, or even some of the newer online dictionaries today. That's one thing I don't do is I don't try to make up my own interpretations or meanings. I just go by the actual defined meanings. And a government, as you would look in I'm sure we'll actually agree with this. A government is basically a representation of the monopoly of force or violence in any geographical area. It is what rules over particular nations. That's what a government is. That's what it always has been. And that's what it is today. Whether you want to call it a democracy, a republic, it's still the concept is that it is supposed to be the entity that has the right to rule. And that right to rule comes with the implied explicit use of force or the threats thereof. Would you not agree with that?
Well, that was a little long.
Yeah.
But I would bring it down. I would bring it down to actually, I don't know if you've noticed that I'm working on precisely a civic dictionary so that we can have a little bit of a better idea, at least a more common parlance, so that we can discuss a little bit more clearly. But definitely the use of the monopoly of force. I don't know about the monopoly of force because, for example, the United States or any other country that allows individuals to own guns, they don't have a monopoly of force. As long as individuals can own guns, they don't actually have the monopoly of force. But if my definition of government is pretty close to yours. It's a social organization entrusted with authority and public force whose function is to enforce the law. Now, the thing is, the law doesn't necessarily, it could be legislation or it could be law in a more profound sense. We always talk about the spirit of the law. And so I think, but the thing is, there were 4 points that you put down here
Yes.
that I do not consider legitimate for anybody or for government. And that, take any portion of your income without your express permission, delegate the task of taking a portion of your income, and the thing is, I don't believe that government has to be that.
But it always has been historic. That's the thing. I get what you're saying, but we have to, like I say, and if we want to redefine whole new terms and meanings for something that you would consider as a means for
But
government.
hasn't always been. It hasn't always been, Bennett. It hasn't always been.
Taxation?
I mean, they've tried. That's what government always tries to do.
What government do
But
you know
I
that
don't
has ever
think that's the
functioned
way it
without
has
tax?
been 100% of the time.
What government are you aware of that has ever functioned without taxation?
Okay, governments that have not taken a portion of your income, I think that we could say, I mean, if by that you mean taxes.
Yes.
If by that you mean taxes.
Yes.
Taxes that have been, the thing is, I'll give you an example. In the time of King John.
Right.
Yeah. In the time of King John, he wanted to take, actually what caused the problem is he wanted to raise the taxes so that he could go off and recover France for his crown.
Right.
Yeah. And that is when, the noblemen and the clergy and the freemen decided to rebel against him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And essentially they made him sign the Magna Carta and say that, you cannot, in short words, because it's a little bit more complex than this, because they didn't have the right idea, but essentially telling King John, you may not take somebody's life, liberty, or property without the consent of their peers and the law of the land.
Right, exactly.
So King John basically represented government, right?
Right.
Yeah. So right there, they were telling him, no, you can't just take from us whenever you want. You need to have our consent to take anybody's life, liberty, or property.
So taxation.
So I think that is possible, and as long as it's government, whether it's under the control of whether it's with consent or without, it's government.
No, but see, this is what, so let's not go off too far. So what you're saying, so you're using the historic example, and I'm fine with whatever example you want to use. I prefer to stick with modern times because I can't change the past. I can only deal with the real world that we're existing in today. But I mean, if you want to use the historical context of King John, that's fine. But so this paper agreement that individuals, right? Certain individuals come to that agreement. And actually that time, it would have been mostly the people that would have been considered the aristocrats, the people of a lot of connections and power themselves, heads of.
The thing is, in those days, the aristocrats did not have enough power.
Yes.
To fight the king alone. So they had to get the consent of the clergy and the freemen. I understand the women were left out. I understand that the serfs were left out. Okay. So there's never been a government with 100% consent. I do agree with that.
Well, that's what I mean. Like if my neighbor decides, like whether you want to use 100-year-old context, 200-year-old, 1,000-year-old, or today, if my neighbor decides that he's willing to allow government officials, politicians to plunder his income, and he signed some kind of contract that said no matter what happens, whoever comes to power, hey, I'm at the mercy of whatever their will in terms of taxation is. I mean, if he agreed to that, or even let's say a few of his neighbors agreed to that, that's fine. I didn't. I would use myself. Like that's the thing with using historical context. If we use today as the context, we can talk about in real person instead of these hypotheticals. So me today as a Canadian citizen, I have never once in my life ever given implicit, implied, or any kind of assent to any politician to take any portion of my income against my will. That's a simple.
I understand,
That's as simple
I
as
have the same complaint.
right. Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah,
So to me, taxation is theft. I mean, if you take something from me, I mean, you have to do a lot of mental gymnastics as an adult. As a child, I can understand it because kids believe in Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny. But as an adult, you got to do a lot of mental gymnastics for people to actually say, no, you agreed to that based on what? Some social contract that some aristocrats designed and wrote up between themselves hundreds of years ago. Like that, nobody in the right mind would even put forth or suggest such a thing without having that very powerful doctrine of statism jammed into their head from very early ages. Like if you landed on the earth today, you would not be putting forth any premise of if somebody, and you understood what the concept of theft was, then you would automatically recognize, well, yeah, of course, taxation is theft. If you haven't given someone the express permission to take any portion of your income and they do it without your permission, then your logic is completely, well, it's not logical at all. If you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So that,
no, and I get your point there. I get your point there completely. I think where we are in disagreement is in the necessity of some kind of social mechanism that will, and I don't know, maybe we're not disagreeing there, but the thing is, that is what I label a legitimate government. What I label a legitimate government is a social mechanism that limits coercion, that limits fraud, that limits breaches of trust. And this mechanism has to be strong enough to take down the biggest political faction, that wants to be able to impose itself by force on other people. Right. In other words, we need to have something. I need to have something because I don't have guns. I don't have I don't have a political faction that I control or that I am a member of. I'm not a part of some strong network that can defend itself. Right. I'm essentially, this lone wolf individual who needs protection from people who are stronger than they are.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I think that it in some respect we all do.
Well, here's the thing. So here's the scenario that you're setting up. And like I say, I've dealt with this a million times over. So I basically already knew what you're going to say before you said it, because I've explained this multiple. So what you're saying is there are potential threats from, your neighbors, someone down the road, a stranger passing through you. There are potential threats of force, violence, or theft. And what you're saying is you need
breach of trust.
Right. So you need some kind of institution or some entity, which you'll call government, to protect you from such things. That's what you're basically alluding to, correct?
Yeah, essentially I am, yeah.
Okay, well, if I'm a thief, to tell you the truth, if there's this thing called government where, see, the petty thief, the person that might run up and grab your purse, there's no pretense that thief has any legitimate claim to your purse. So if anyone sees the robber running by, any stranger, any passerby, your coworker, maybe a neighbor, maybe your children, maybe a relative, they all know that person is stealing your money and it's against your will, and that is an act of theft. Now those thieves, like I say, they're taking that responsibility on themselves to steal. A sophisticated thief, rather than a petty, low-level criminal such as that, would realize that actually the best kind of way to steal is go into a position called government, where everyone will actually believe that you have legitimate authority. So as soon as you've created government, you're basically, because you got to remember, bad people, bad actors are going to find a way. And to tell you the truth, for a bad actor, it's much more difficult. They place themselves in very substantial portion of danger by going and steal your purse themselves, because you might have a son that's an MMA, mixed martial artist that can go and kick that person's royal ass for doing so, right? So, but the intelligent thieves, which I call them politicians, realize that no, actually the best kind of thieving or extortion to take place actually, you wouldn't even have to call it thieving or extortion. You just basically say, I claim a portion, and you'll just freely hand that over to them. That's the best kind of thief, because then they're in no danger themselves, and there's no threat of retaliation.
Yeah. I'm not going to contradict you in that respect at all. Power is a magnet.
Yes.
For people who don't want to work.
Yes.
And who would like to just have things easy and don't want to do the work that it takes to earn their own living or to use their brain in some useful way. No, I am not contradicting you in that respect at all. Right. And I understand that it's a magnet, and that to government only arrive the best liars. Mm-hmm. Okay, only people who are really good at lying make it to the top in politics. Okay, yes, exactly, and when their lies don't work, they have no problem using coercion. Mm-hmm. I mean, essentially, when you decide you're going to lie, you're not picky about your other means. Right. If you're okay with lying, coercion, no problem. Send a policeman over to take this guy's money so that I can have a salary and I can have all the other perks that I set for myself. No, I understand. But the thing is, and I'm not saying that is the only alternative to a state of anarchy where might is right. Okay, right. I'm not saying that is the only alternative to might is right. Right. I'm just saying that. Well,
might makes right. Let me just a little pushback there, just a tad bit here, is the might make right. Yeah. We recognize there are always going to be humans that are going to seek to cause harm to other people. That's just basically, it's going to be.
I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
Oh, sorry. There's always going to be a subset, a small portion of the population that's going to wish to do harm to other people. We recognize that's just part of the human experience, right? So to me, when you were kind of alluding to earlier, and you were saying you don't have a gun, you have no way to protect yourself, this is one of the things that I found was most fundamentally important, and especially for people, whether it's men of smaller stature or women. The beautiful aspect, because, as women, most times, generalized statement is you are in a more vulnerable state in terms of your physical prowess, right? But the beautiful thing about the U.S., the way they set up their Constitution, when the Founding Fathers made sure that the Second Amendment was so important, was by sheer fact that the gun is actually the great equalizer. It's basically the only thing that we do. And because now people that say that there should be no such thing as guns, once again, that's utopian. Guns already exist. Like, to suggest that they're ever going to disappear or have gun control where only the right people have them, that's also utopian. So the fact that we know there are definite threats, the only way to protect yourself against an actual threat, and considering, like, even if there was a thief coming at you, a cop isn't, unless you've got a police officer sitting on your shoulder 24 hours a day, well armed and really fast response time.
Yeah, no, I understand.
The government or their enforcers rarely, unless just by happenstance they happen to be in the right place at the right time, rarely prevent crimes. But the beautiful thing about having not just the right to bear arms, I love the fact the way states such as Texas does it, where you actually are legally allowed to have concealed carry. Now, the beautiful thing about having concealed carry is, let's say someone like yourself, Karen, you don't really care for carrying a gun around. I would suggest most people, depending on where you live, if it's not that dangerous, if you're not in a war zone, I would suggest actually having a gun with you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week is probably going to could possibly get you in more trouble than what it's worth. But the beautiful thing about having the permission, the right, it's actually not permission. Sorry, that's a wrong way to say it. The right, the inherent right to preserve your life, which is have a protective mechanism such as a gun, is you may not even have to carry that gun. But if you live in a place or any jurisdiction where your rights, your inalienable inherent rights are recognized and acknowledged, then you don't even have to have that snub-nosed 38 stuffed down at the bottom of your purse. But the thief doesn't necessarily know that. So now you've ramped up, you've escalated to see a thief, that might get, a couple $100 out of your wallet, let's say. Even for their own self-preservation, they're going to make a mental calculation. Now, unarmed places, which is why most of the high crime rates in the US, most of the highest crime rates actually happen in the major urban centers that have very restrictive gun laws, like basically no guns allowed in any of these places. And that's actually where most thieves or people that want to use guns gravitate to. That's why you see the highest crime rates are in those big major urban centers, is because they realize that most of the people in their communities are helpless victims that won't be any threat to them. Whereas, like I say, if you go to a place like the state like Texas, people actually are much more cordial and friendly to each other because they recognize instinctively that each person in any particular setting has that potential to be a direct threat back to them just as much as they might be a threat to them. And they don't understand their level of competence, how well they are at using their weapon. So it's that ability, whether you choose to take advantage of that inherent right, it is that ability, that recognized legitimacy of having your own means of protection that would greatly diminish any potential for a thief to cause harm.
Now I have a question for you, Bennett. I have a question for you, Bennett.
Yeah,
you've been talking about the right to own a gun and these other rights.
Right.
My question to you is, you know, what makes those rights legitimate? Because I'll tell you a story. I live here in Guatemala.
Okay, right. Actually, I had a friend I worked with from Guatemala.
It came to me rather abruptly and without being able to deny it, that rights do not exist. Okay, rights, we wish we could have rights, okay, but if there is nothing to enforce your right, okay, that right doesn't exist except in our own heads.
Yes.
And in the consensus of the people around you. If they decide that they don't want to give you that right, well, guess what? You don't get to have that right.
But
I mean, my right to have guns doesn't stop somebody from, in the moment that let's say I do pack a gun, okay? And I'm not as vigilant as I need to be. Somebody comes along, tackles me, takes my gun, and there goes my right to have guns. I might have the power to have a gun. I might have the capability to own a gun, but the right to have a gun, not unless there is something else willing to back my right to have a gun. In other words, there needs to be something. There needs to be something in a society where rights actually mean something.
Right.
Okay. In other words, if there is no social mechanism of any kind that allows you to, that really does put teeth behind that right, rights don't exist.
Well,
rights don't exist.
Well, no, rights are human. Like humans constructed the concept of right, but what a proper right is, there's some people that confuse what they deem positive rights as. Now, I would agree with you that positive rights are actually an impossibility. Negative rights, which are rights that do not inflict or cause harm to other people, right? So when a person has a right for freedom of speech, right to bear arms, a right to be free from searches or seizures, these are all what are perceived or considered negative rights. So they're all universalized. You can universalize these rights without causing harm, economic or socially. Now, a positive right, when someone says that you have a right to something, right? So let's say someone says, oh, I have a right to healthcare. Well, that is actually something that does go against like morals and ethics, because if I have a right to healthcare, that's basically to suggest I have the right to enslave a doctor, right? I have no right to that. That's the person has the option to offer voluntarily their services to me, but I cannot enslave the person or force them at gunpoint. So,
but you can. But you can if you have enough power. That's the problem.
But that's not a right.
You can enslave people. You can take. You can shut them up. If you have enough power, you can do all of those things.
But power is not a right.
You can shout rights all you want.
For sure.
But that doesn't mean that you know, that magically out of thin air.
No.
Now I understand that there's a logic behind rights.
No,
I understand.
but the logic is the Second Amendment. See, if you have you ever read the Federalist Papers or actually understood like what the founding
Yes,
fathers
I've read the Federalist Papers and I have excellent reading comprehension.
Okay, so then you know, then like even when he said, even when you're talking about the Second Amendment, the importance of the Second Amendment is yes, we're going to set up this experiment, but your rights, like your First Amendment, your freedom of speech, like you were saying, all of those rights, they cease to exist if someone decides they want to arbitrarily impose their own edicts on you, right? So that's true. But the way that you make sure to defend your inherent rights is with that Second Amendment. You're right. Someone could possibly come to you tomorrow, like you were saying, using the scenario where someone comes and steals your gun out of your purse. Well, that I would say, you know, that's a detriment, obviously, for you. That's a terrible thing for that to happen to you. But no one would ever suggest that the thief had a right to do that. They would say that the thief
no, absolutely not. No,
right?
but the thing is, rights are worthless without the power to enforce those rights.
Exactly, 100%.
You know, if I don't have that power,
yeah.
If I don't have that power, that right doesn't exist.
Exactly. That's 100. We're both in agreement, which is why people need to be armed to defend themselves against people that want to use force against you. Because as we understand, no matter how many laws they write, I mean, that's the thing. You can write a million laws that say you're not allowed to commit murder. You're not allowed to steal. Yet thieves still steal all the time and people still murder all the time. So yes, of course, 100%. Words written on parchment or paper are useless. Anything that has no substance in physical, tangible nature isn't going to stop anyone from doing anything. Words aren't going to stop a bullet. The only thing that's going to stop that is people's ability to defend themselves. Now, what you would suggest in terms of when you're talking about government is you want to offload that responsibility to an entity that takes a monopoly of that force. But to me, I don't trust.
I'm not suggesting a monopoly. No, I'm not suggesting a monopoly. No, but I would also, the thing is, to me, government without an impartial jury, to decide unanimously whether it's right to use the force or not, to me, that kind of government cannot be legitimate. Cannot be legit.
Well, that's the thing. When you say the impartiality or everyone, like you couldn't get 10 people in one room to agree on pretty much anything. So the thing is,
all you need to do, Bennett, all you need to do is, if those 10 people do not agree that it is fair to use government force against you, that is what the jury is supposed to be about. It's not, the jury is not supposed to be, agreeing to do something for them to do something. No, it's without the unanimity in a jury, the government does not have the legitimate right to use force.
Well, no, but so I think we're kind of getting a little bit off track here. So basically, if you want, we can go like.
Not to me, because the thing is, unless force is used justly by government, it cannot be legitimate.
Right.
Now, perhaps you're arguing.
But when they write legislation all the time in governments that suggest that they have the right. I mean,
it's illegitimate. It's illegitimate. If it will not pass the consent of a jury when it's time to apply that legislation, if it will not get unanimity, in other words, impartiality, it's not legitimate.
Right. But how many people, like, I agree 100%, like locking people up for smoking, consuming, or redistributing a plant called marijuana, cannabis, to me, that is illegitimate. That's an illegitimate use of force because there's no victim. For something to be considered a crime, there should be a victim. But it happens every day in every part of the world where people are basically, thrown into cages or, monetarily.
And I think that's basically for two reasons, Bennett. I think it's for two reasons. They don't understand what the purpose of the jury is, which is essentially to stop the illegitimate use of force. Okay. And number two, because they don't want to take the responsibility of telling government to stop when it's trying to use illegitimate force.
But those jury members, when you go to sit on a jury of any trial, it's the judge, which is reading from the laws on the book written by the legislators, the political class, that's going to tell.
The thing is that is also illegitimate. That role that the judge has assumed is illegitimate.
I agree, but the reason why that whole court case will play out and the jury will find the defendant guilty is because, like I say, the judge is going to say it's illegal. We've deemed it illegal to cultivate this plant called cannabis. Yeah. So the jury, their belief in that authority is why, even though you and I agree with you 100%, we're 100% in agreement here that it's an illegitimate use of government force. But the reason why the jury will still convict is because they believe in the authority of the state. So if the state, the judge, the legislators, the politicians tell them that it's illegal under law, whether it's in Canadian jurisdiction or whatever jurisdiction, Guatemala jurisdiction, if the courts or the judges or the politicians tell the jurors that you have to convict based on our political edicts, what we call legislation, then they will, because they believe in that authority. That to me is the biggest problem with the authority, which is why I say it's very important to express to people the importance that there is no such thing, that authority is actually a myth, and actually not even just subjective based on my opinion, but provably so. That's why I articulated those 4 questions in such a manner, because if you actually go through them, and if you want to even do it now, we can do it. You can't get from point A to B without, like I say, having a complete contradiction. So that's all I'm saying.
No, I understand the situation that we have allowed government to get into right now. I understand that completely.
Right.
The thing is, I prefer government with a proper jury that has the right as well as the knowledge that they have the right to stop injustices by government. Because otherwise, a state of anarchy to me, where people, they get together to do the same thing the government does, only in, smaller scale, and those people who don't want to ally themselves with some powerful faction, end up screwed.
Right. Well, but once again, we're back to the circular logic is you need a protector to protect you from bad. What you're saying, and like I say, this scenario, like it's been played out so many times, is there are bad people on this planet. We all recognize this. So we need something to protect us. Well, the people that are more vulnerable. Me, I'm not looking for nobody, and I've never in my entire life looked for anyone to protect me, because I recognize there's never been that situation or scenario where the state, the government has ever been able to protect me from any imminent threat. Never, it's never happened in my life.
But I think that perhaps Bennett, you've never been either in a situation where something besides government has posed. Wait. Where something besides government has posed a serious threat to your life.
Yeah, I grew up in the East End of Toronto, and it was very ghetto-y in the 80s, 70s, and 80s. And trust me, I've had guns pulled on me, I've had knives. I was cut across my leg downtown by guys that ran by, and they tried to steal a coat off my girl. I've been in some pretty precarious situations, and like I say, not at one time was there ever any way that I could have been protected or helped. The police might have been able to come along after the fact, lay my coat over my face if I was dead, right? Take a report, and maybe after the fact, maybe punish the guy subsequent if they catch the person, right? But no crime was ever prevented. And like I say, there are going to be always outliers or exceptions. So I'm sure there has been times where there just happened to be a cop in the right place at the right time. But even if you take that scenario and say, okay, so that is an example of where the police but for every one example that you can point out where the police have protected someone, right, in society, I could point out there's probably at least a dozen, 2 dozen, way more, but I'm being light here. And how many times those police officers, because of their own belief in their authority, have actually caused more harm to people in society than they've done in terms of helping them. That's just, like I say, it's those police that, even though, like you were saying, you're relying on jurors, but why do those police, that see that this person, all they saw was someone give money to one person and the other person handed over a bag of some green stuff, right? That's what they see. Now, if you saw that and it was a tomato or a head of lettuce, anything, it'd be, well, yeah, it's just an economic transaction. It's completely peaceful. It's voluntary. As you can tell, both people are actually doing it. It's 100. The only reason why the police believe that they have the right or the authority to go in and inflict harm on the people that are doing that, and I mean real harm can possibly happen, because the first threats will be to stop doing what you're doing, is what the officer's orders would be, right? I'm going to place you under arrest for, selling drugs, let's say. But
yeah, see, and
the minute you go to resist, but the minute you try to resist that officer, because, like I say, government is a direct threat of force, and these are the people that are armed. So if you try to, even though you were doing something that was completely legitimate, not properly illegal under any normal sense of morality or legality, that officer can escalate right up to the point where they, if you don't submit to their orders, you could lose your life. That's the danger. That's the danger of that belief.
I guess it comes down to a matter of what system you would feel safer under, and unfortunately, the thing is, neither your system of anarchy is in place so that you can go live there, nor is there a system where government limited by fully conscious jurors of what the law really is and what freedom is. It comes down to a difference in opinion as to what is more likely to be effective.
Right. And actually, you know what? The only way you could find that out, right? Just think if you were trying to do that as an actual experiment, how would you find out which is more effective, right? You would actually test those hypotheses.
Yeah, it would be nice if we could.
Right. So this is the importance of, and I think actually one of your original questions when you were talking about this, and the reason why I put that out there in such a way, the myth of authority, is because I need people. The only way that we're ever going to get to the point. Now, the U.S., they had the founding fathers had the only jurisdiction left on the globe other than Antarctica, but nobody wants to try going down there at this particular. But they had that one place to try their experiment with a really, really tiny, small government. And these were people which back then would have identified as classical liberal or libertarian, depending on what part of Europe they came from. So, but they tried, but they still left that little bit of space for government open, right? That monopoly force. And you see, it started out as the smallest and has now grown to the biggest, because the minute you made that exception for people to have some pretense of authority, well, like I say, then you're going to have that. It's that place where everyone's going to gravitate that seeks power. Now, to me, like I say, if we could get enough people, like I'll just use Canada as an example. If I could get enough people thinking critically about this issue and actually recognize, yeah, you're 100% right. There is no such thing as legitimate government, just based on, like I say, not my own, like people, those questions, when I put them there, it's so that people can ask them to themselves in the privacy of their own home. And if you run it through and if you're logically consistent, you realize actually, no, there is no such thing. So to me, is if you had a place, like when you say anarchy, the reason why I consider myself a libertarian and not an anarchist is because an anarchist basically just rejects rulers, right? But they don't have anything.
I'm sorry, an anarchist rejects what?
Rulers, like having any kind of state, government, or rulers, like authority of any kind. Now, as a libertarian, it's not just that I'm against having government, which is illegitimate. It's libertarian has built in principles, philosophical principles, that's part of what being a libertarian is. It's part of the libertarian philosophy. And those principles are self-ownership. So I own myself. No human being has any claim of ownership over me. So slavery, right? And then that. Property rights, anything that I bring into this world as a result of my intellect or my labor or anything that I create, that's mine, that's property rights, or any boundary that I use as my homestead or a property to grow my vegetables or to run my business. So property rights and the non-aggression principle, which is never to use preemptive force, violence, theft, or coercion towards someone else. Now, defensive force is 100% and fully acknowledged. But see, that already, if you take property rights, self-ownership, and the non-aggression principle, you've already got a foundation of principles where people already have a way to socially and economically engage. Whereas under pure anarchy, there's nothing baked into anarchism. It's just the rejection of the authority of the state. But it doesn't mean, like you say, that they can't set up their own, authoritarian type of regime, and instead of call it government, call it whatever the hell else they want, right? But that's the thing with the libertarian is we're not anarchists. We understand, which is why we bring the philosophical and moral concepts into the equation.
But the thing is, the question comes down to this, Bennett. What if half of the population does not share those principles? What if they're in Paleolithic mode and they think that they have a right to take what they want if they're strong enough to take it? Well, and the thing is, so does that mean that only people who have guns and the power to defend themselves have rights?
Isn't that what a government is? Right? No, but because that's what you're saying, that government is like, you need that monopoly. So yes, that's how it would work. You have to have the ability to defend yourself if you want. Because like I say, in Canada, now I'm in New Brunswick. So let's say I took one of the counties in New Brunswick, and somehow we've managed to get enough people on board where we're going to try a social economic experiment, and we're going to have this one county in New Brunswick.
I'm losing the
okay, I'm
connection.
Going to. Oh, really?
I can't hear you.
Oh, okay. I'll just wait till it gets better. Just let me know if it starts to clean up at all.
Yeah, I'm seeing a bit of a glitch. You freeze.
Oh, really?
And then I can't hear.
Uh-oh. Still doing it?
Ahorita no te puedo hablar, Mari. Adelante. Are you there?
Yep. I'm just waiting just let me know if it's cleared up yet or not.
Okay. Yeah, right now you're fine, but you were coming in and out, and I was losing you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So back to what I was saying. So like I say, if we set up a little experiment somewhere here, like I say, on the east end of Canada in one county in New Brunswick, and like you say, we just want to do things like the libertarian way. Now, like you say, there's still always going to be external threats, whether it's from governments or private actors. That's just always going to be a reality. So obviously, just like in my house, there's governments, even just a perfect scenario in my real life. I have a home, I have property, I have machinery, I have, tools. So there's always potential threat of people that may very well steal from me, or may want to use force or violence towards me or my wife or my children. So that's already something that's a potential for every human being that's alive. Now, to me, I have to, just like with my home, I have to find as many means or measures as possible to defend myself. Now, there's other ways that I can defend myself from potential threats. One is not just by having means of defense, but by being a decent enough person. So I treat people, like I say, as with the non-aggression principle. So by treating people with respect and dignity and the sovereignty of the individual, and not being racist, I've already eliminated, greatly reduced any potential for threat, but the threat still exists. But that threat can only be countered, and you've basically acknowledged this, the only way that a threat can be countered is by me having the ability to be just as much as a threat. So if someone rolls up my backyard with a tank, I better have a tank sitting in the backyard as well, or at least enough guys a couple guys that got anti-tank mines, or an RPG that's got anti-tank shell in it. There's got to be something where I can defend myself. That's the thing where you have the personal responsibility rather than offload that to an entity. Because the minute I've offloaded that,
the thing is, I don't know, Bennett, that I would call it offloading that responsibility on somebody else. What I'm saying is that for me, it would be cooperating with other people to
Oh,
where we could mutually, hold on, where we could, we could have an organization that protects each other,
yeah, for
and the
sure.
thing is, but even that organization is going to be, especially the more people that join the organization, the bigger it gets, the more potential there is for it to get out of control. Okay. But the thing is, if you do not have, I feel
You just
that
described
if you do
government.
not have a, if you do not have some, okay, let's say in a state of libertarianism, the way that you're describing it, I see no difference between the way that you're describing libertarianism and anarchy if there are always actors who are going to want to coerce, want to defraud, want to betray trust. Okay, if there are always actors like that, okay, there is just there's just no way that they can be kept from being the biggest power in this given territory, and then coerce, have them coerce at will, unless we can all come to an agreement that the thing is, we do need to come to some kind of agreement if we do not want to live in the jungle.
Oh, 100%. Well, I don't know anyone. I've never met anyone yet that wants to live in the pure state of nature, not in any of the Western countries anyway. I mean, I haven't traveled all over.
But to me, that's what anarchism is. And that's what,
well, no, it's not really, because
where there isn't somebody that can that can put limits on the strongest power there is.
Well, see, this is what I mean, though. Anarchists are basically saying they reject the pretense of the state, which is a monopoly of force or violence. Those who claim to have the legitimate monopoly, because it's not just the monopoly of force. You can get it, like you were saying, I could get a gang of 20 bikers together, right? And go to a real small rural community, and we can be the biggest show of force. But the difference between me, my gang, and the government is no one in that community believes, right? I mean, think about it. Think of how much easier it would be to get into that community and do as much bad stuff to that community as you want. If the people in that community recognize instinctively that it's this guy Bennett and a bunch of gangsters, a bunch of bikers, right? At least they're like, oh, hey, these gangsters are coming, and they don't have good intentions, so we better get ready to protect ourselves because we recognize there's an imminent threat, right? At least there's some kind of warning for the people, because they suspect and admit and acknowledge that there's a threat being posed eminently towards them. Whereas the minute you trick people into thinking, oh no, that's just, now I'll just, take off the biker coats, put on a suit and tie, call myself a politician, right? Roll into the town with a $5,000 pinstripe suit on. Now all the people are, let's just go about our daily. Hey, I was just going to get a loaf of bread at the grocery store. Yeah, I left my door locked at home, but hey, it's just the politics. The difference being is, like I say, the people are more helpless. You create more victims by believing in that.
Most people do not see the threat that government can be. Absolutely, I agree with you.
And it's because of their belief. If they didn't believe, every other threat that you ever have imposed you'll notice the one thing that will separate it is the fact that you recognize instinctively that they don't have any authority to use force against you. So like I say, a thief's still going to be a thief. Just like you were saying, any scenario you can set up, and I agree with you 100%, there's always going to be potentials for threats, violence, or force, or theft. The difference being between government or anyone else is everyone recognizes that thief has no legitimate claim to do so or authority to do so. It's the tricking of the human mind from very early ages to self-subject. That's the problem, is you create a scenario now where you have people that grow up as adults are willing to conform and subject themselves to the point where, like here in Canada, the Fraser Institute study came out, and it's actually bumped up to 46% now. So taxation in Canada represents 46% of the average income. Now, if you want to take your clothing, your food, and your shelter, which is the bare necessities for humans to exist, that takes 42% of the average Canadian's income. So the government now actually takes in excess more than what you would need just to provide for yourself for self-sustainability. So how close are we really to back to full-on human slavery, subjugation?
Yeah, no. The thing is, I think we're going around in circles when I think we're going around in circles when you go back to point out the flaws of government the way that it is right now.
Right, but it's not a flaw because no, but here's the thing though. It's not a flaw because the wrong people are in charge. It's a flaw that's built into the formula. That's why government cannot exist. The minute you set up government, just like I said, the founding fathers set it up to be so tiny. And they had three different levels of government that were supposed to be as a means to push back and hold each branch of government to account. It was set up, but once again, you're relying on the human mind and their interpretation of what those rules mean. So what you see is it started out as a very, very free nation. You know, people had tons and tons of freedoms and liberties at the very early, well, certain people, not everyone, mind you, but certain people had tons of freedoms early on, but they've been eroded over time, which usually only takes a couple hundred years in most democracies, is because all it takes is a few generations removed from that concept, the belief, because at the very early stages, people didn't believe that government was supposed to have the ability to have an income tax. I know in Canada, we didn't have such things as an income tax till 1917, and that was supposed to be a temporary war measure act to pay for the war, right? Yeah. So, but the thing is, after a few generations go by and that belief in authority is instilled and enshrined in them, like I say, from a very early age through the education system and horizontally enforced by everyone else in their family, their community that's gone through the same education, is it only takes a few generations and now you're at the position you are today. Whereas that belief of authority is what keeps most people compliant and conformist and unwilling to stand and rebel against authoritarian governments. And that's because they believe that it's legitimate for the government to do what they do. Now, they'll have different agreements, just like, you can have 10 people sitting around in a coffee shop. Some people say, oh, you should have free healthcare. Some people say, but that's all subjective preference in what people think or deem government should be there to use force for. But in reality, like I said, with my 4 questions, is there is no legitimate claim that any human being, right? Politicians are people just like you or I. So they should never.
I don't argue with that. I don't argue with that part. I don't argue with that part. What I'm arguing with is your proposed solution. I don't think that your proposed solution resolves the problem of one person or one group of people coercing, defrauding, betraying another. I don't think that solves the problem.
Well, it does in a way. Like, okay, so perfect example. Let me, like I say, so this hypothetical that I set up where we have our little libertarian community east coast of New Brunswick is, yes, there's always going to be potential threats, but no one in the community of libertarians, people that have that concept that they don't believe in authority of the state, if anybody comes in there to steal, well, people automatically recognize, and because a libertarian society would fully respect.
Yeah, but you know what? Even people who say they're libertarians, I mean, it's like wolves in sheep's clothing are, one of our biggest problems as a species.
Right. Yes. But that's But that's the thing. If that is a wolf, the libertarian will understand that no matter if they're wearing the sheep costume or the wolf costume, we all recognize that whether they're sheep or neither the sheep nor the wolf has any legitimate claim. Yes, there's going to be, like I say, there's always going to be bad people that are going to try to cause harm to people. What prevents me today from defending myself is the fact that the state prevents me from doing so. That's the thing.
But the thing is not everybody can defend themselves. That's always my point.
Right. But that's why you would want to probably be in a community of people that really knew how to take care of themselves. And in a libertarian community, because they don't rely on the state, just like people like farmers, right? I can go out in the back 40 where I live. And like I said, I live in a rural area. There's people that don't need government for anything because they're fully and wholly self-sustaining. You got Amish communities basically that don't really, but it's what it is just people have to have their society, their culture, whatever area that they want to set up, whatever jurisdiction is, you want to surround yourself, just like most people, you want to surround yourself with people that are of like mind so that you have better protection. If I live like in a libertarian community, then I would recognize that all the people in my community understand nobody has any legitimate use or force of violence. So we're not going to be tricked or duped by the snake oil salesman that comes along and says, hey, I'm a politician, I need half your income. And don't worry, it's for the greater good. And you're going to get more than that back in, I don't know, subsidies or right. So a libertarian society would be people fully cognizant of the folly and the fallibility of this pretense of giving anyone legitimate claim of force. So that's what would hold us all in check, is not that there won't be bad people. And it could be, like you say, there could be someone that sneaks into your community, says, hey, I'm a libertarian, right? Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm all about the non-aggression principle. But the minute they go against the non-aggression principle, the minute they go to steal from their neighbor, well, once again, then in that community, you're not just going to have one person, the neighbor, that's going to want to retaliate or at least get what was taken from them back. But then everyone else in the community is, okay, well, let's find out who did that. And whoever did it, well, we don't even have to threaten them with imprisonment or incarceration per se, but hey, they probably need to go to the gas station, which is down the road here. There's only one in our small little community, unfortunately, but it's owned by a libertarian as well. And he's not going to sell gas to a thief. You can basically ostracize someone out of your community to the point where they not saying that people can't come into there, but you're not going to have any legitimacy, and people aren't going to come in and set up shop, whether it's the mafia or the government, and then they think that they're going to have the ability to sit there in their glass windows safely and security while they plunder or cause harm, economic or social harm, to the people of the community, because the people of the community would automatically recognize, no, you don't have any right to do that.
Yeah, well, I'm certainly, I can see where you're going. I have my doubts as to the effectiveness of the capability of such a libertarian.
I
have my doubts, but anyway, I realize that we don't have much time left.
No, but actually, let me just say,
and I certainly am. I mean, I'm a libertarian myself. And it certainly would be good. And it certainly would be good for people to have libertarian principles, definitely non-aggression, life, liberty, property, and all that. But I think that that mine is a very real fear.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure.
Or should I say that I'm still not convinced.
No,
I'm still not convinced.
No, I hear
government is useless. I'm still not convinced that government is useless, and that some kind of government cannot be made to do its job if we see its job as simply limiting coercion, limiting fraud, limiting breaches of trust. If we can begin to see government in that way, and if we can get everybody to see government in that way, then I think that there's some hope. And I mean, I feel that what you're saying is right up there with Marx's idea that once the proletariat has been around as dictator long enough, the state will just disappear. And I think there's the same suspicion for the state in both cases. And the difference being that Marx advocated the use of force to make that change.
Yeah, see, that's the thing.
But I think that it would be, really good to, well, I'm not all that good at articulating verbally. I'm a lot better when I write, because I can examine what I write a lot better. And I think that we examine each other's ideas a lot better as we write.
Right.
So anyway, I hope that we can come to an agreement at some point, because I think that we are essentially on the same path.
All right. I agree. I would just a couple things I just want to say real quickly. So like you were saying, if we could get enough people to agree to, reduce and limit the size and scope of government, right? So I would say, now I don't like to do this, because when people use that kind of reference, to me, it's demeaning and degrades the conversation. But some person would basically suggest to you that's like, So people suggest to libertarians, oh, well, there's no way that's ever going to happen. Like basically what you were alluding to, like, I like your idea of your little libertarian thing, but like, that's never, but I could basically say the same thing is when are you ever going to get everybody to agree to keep government that small? Well, you're not, because some people are going to want to grow that government pretty big because they realize that that government is how they can get their most money, enjoy the most power, right? So no scenario which, like I say, absent the state or with the state, no matter what happens, humans we're always going to be subject to potential threats from other actors. That's just going to always be a reality. To me, though, is removing the belief in it's at least at the minimal, at the bare minimal. And what people do with this information, it's completely up to each individual. I'm not here to tell anyone any prescriptive remedy other than what I think would work for me or people like myself. But at least if you tell people that, you know, that authority is illegitimate, it gets them in the proper mindset where they're thinking more critically about what the potential threat truly is. Now, just one more thing I want to say is when you were setting up the scenario about it would almost be an impossible thing in terms of railing against, let's say, a big, powerful force or state. Let's say you didn't have, you know, a standing army. Perfect example. In my little Libertopia, let's say, we don't have a standing army. We're like the U.S. when they set up the 13 colonies and put them all together under the one constitution and federalized everything. Well, you have militias. And the beautiful thing about a militia is it's in every one of our interests to protect our community, our household, right? If there's a threat in our community, I don't need anyone to tell me, hey, you better get out there and protect, because I care about my family, that I'm just going to do that instinctively. And the beautiful thing about a militia is you have the proper incentive, and you don't have a standing army that then can be used, turned around by the political class and turned against the people. That's the founding fathers are wise to do that. And actually, as much as it sounded like, how is that even possible? Because at the time, Britain was still basically the global empire at the time when the U.S. set up the, you know, their 13 colonies and federalized everything and started, you know, implementing what the United States was. But all it took was, you know, and the King of England, and well, you even had the French somewhat helping in some degree, although more up north here in Canada. Actually, the French kind of helped some of the Southern rebels in some degrees. But either way, you had giant standing armies that tried to rule and override this new social experiment U.S. and basically make North America just another colony for the British Empire. And you know what? Those ragtag band of militias defeated, you know, the most powerful army and navy on the planet at the time. So never underestimate the power of the people when they actually have the ability to do things and come together to defend themselves, because it's going to be in their own best interest, in the best interest of the people in their community. I don't need a draft, right? Actually, I'm glad there's no such thing as a draft, because most of the wars that happen today have nothing to do with defending my country. It has to do with going and inflicting harm to other people or protecting special interests or corporations. There's a lot of times that military adventurism that happens today. But anyways, before I finish up there, I just wanted to share this with you, because I think this picture alone, and I'm going to try to put it on the screen, because I think this picture kind of helps describe the kind of things that I talk about. So let's see here. Because to me, like I say, the most important thing is just to have people thinking critically about these things. And if they got the right state of mind, like clarity of language gives clarity of thought, and clarity of thought gives, you know, persons a much better ability to think critically about these issues. So here, let me just show you. Okay, share screen. Okay, tab. Oh, no, it's not a tab. Okay, so this one, entire screen. Let's see if this is going to work here. I haven't done this in a while. Okay, share entire screen. Okay, let's see what's happening here. Did a picture just flip up? No, probably not.
No.
I think that, oh, here we go. Now I see it. Okay, so now let's see. Okay, now can you see it?
I can see. Remember, I'm on my phone.
Oh, sorry.
And I see a horse or a mule.
Yeah, it's a horse. Anyways, I'm going to get rid of the picture here. And it's basically, yeah, it's a horse that's, let me go back to the original.
If you could enlarge it and have it fill the screen, that I'd probably see it better.
Yeah, it's okay. Anyways, it was a picture of a horse basically outside in the field, and all it's attached to by its tether is a chair, a plastic lawn chair, right? But because
Okay. Okay. I see the point. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right. And see, that's the thing. That horse actually could be so much freer if only the only thing that keeps that horse confined in that space, right, rather than going running off freely into the wild, is its belief that it's trapped by that leash. That just because it's been.
Yeah. No. 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 I get the point. I get the point completely. I get the point completely. Eh, but I just have. Oof. Yeah. I just have too many personal experiences that make me doubt. The thing is, we need some kind of mechanism that won't allow itself to be hijacked, whether it's getting together militia or what for self-defense, because human beings are just so darn deceitful that people can be fooled into doing practically anything.
Yes,
But
which is why you don't want to create.
yeah, it would be great if we could continue to discuss with the written word, where I feel a little bit more capable.
Right. No, I get it. Actually, that's the thing with I it's an unfortunate thing, and I guess it maybe has a lot to do with even in school. I think it was grade 9 when we had to do typing, and back then it was like just the typing, not a keyboard. Like it was an actual typewriter. That's how. No, actually, that wouldn't have. Yeah, so that would have been in 85. Yeah, actually. But I've never, even now, like I'm a fairly decent writer if I want to. I'm good at grammar. I can articulate my thoughts. I just, and maybe it's because I don't know. To me, it's the time consumption. It's weird, but to me, I can get so much out verbally that if I did it in text, it would be literally, well, I mean, listen to the way, I mean, I obviously I talk, I can go on for hours. So trying to articulate my thoughts from my mind in text form, I could basically write novel length comments, and most people don't want to in social media.
The thing is when it's verbal, it's hard to, especially when we shoot off 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 statements, it's hard to pin one down and really get down to the brass tacks. Well, wait a minute, this particular word here,
right,
you're using it in this context, but I see it in a different way. And so that's what I like about the written word, that it permits as far as I'm concerned, it permits much greater analysis than
you can do it on your own, on your own leisure, right, without tying up someone else's time, right? That I get it there 100%. And actually, that's why when we have conversations like this, like I would never want to do it in like a 10-15 minute video, or where someone sets up like a debate or something where it's like you get 5 minutes, no. It has to be in long form and let people, matter of fact, I'd be more than willing, which is why I always set aside at least a couple, 2-3 hours, is if you wanted to, even if you wanted to, I would make myself available to, if you want to go line by line, and like I say, clarity of language. So, maybe there's a word written there, and let's make sure we're actually sticking to the defined meanings, and so we can properly articulate our push back against each other. And I'm willing to do that. And that's what I love about having stuff like this, where we can talk to each other in podcast form, in long form, like I say, so we can take that time to do so. Now, if today you don't have any more time, then we can tie this up.
Well, the problem with today is that my tripod is way too tall.
Oh, yes, you're gonna get a sore neck. I was gonna say that, like, you're gonna get.
And I can barely hear you, so that when both of us talk at the same time, I can't hear you at all. And so maybe if we could get the someday when I get a new computer, maybe it'll be a little bit easier, or maybe I can get that tripod to come down a little ways. But as it is right now, it's like, okay.
Yeah, no, I completely understand, Karen. And like I say, I'm just very appreciative. I've met a few. I had another discussion with a gentleman yesterday, actually, from ThinkSpot. And I'm just really appreciative to have met people like yourself, because what I've found that's important about a place like ThinkSpot is not filled with people that just have an ideological bent and is unwilling to be challenged on their own. Like for me to even get to the point where I am today, I've had to have a lot of stuff beaten out of me. I've had to go through a lot of cognitive dissonance. I mean, I was raised in a very religious family, and like, you know, the whole belief in government and statism, the whole thing. So I've had to go through a lot of changes myself, and I get it's not easy. Everyone's got to kind of do that on their own level. But like I say, all I want to do, and that's the point of ThinkSpot, is to get these ideas out there, because I just can't help but think, because if you listen to some of the people like Adam Smith or John Locke, people that were Enlightenment era figures from Europe, these very kinds of discussions were taking place then. And actually it was those discussions, well, plus you had post-Reformation, the period of post-Reformation, and the scientific and model was being, you know, greatly expanded and encompassed for human thought. And that led to, like I say, a very, very well-established, very small form of limited government, which was the United States. So if it gave us that, which was basically started out to be the most freest nation on the planet, now it's not that free as it used to be. But if that's what the precipice was to start that conversation that affected the future of humanity to the point where you actually did see some benefits, there's been some back steps, right? Some backtracking as well, but we have seen positive gains in terms of human cooperation and human development. So I'm saying what we're doing today, and I've been kind of coined my own phrase, Enlightenment era 2.0. Now we don't have to rely on the Gutenberg press. We have the internet. We have the ability to communicate in real time across large spanses of space and time, and to be able to talk about these amazing ideas with a multitude of people. And like I say, I think this will kind of get viral at some point in time, because people are very disenfranchised. I think most people that you would talk to would say, yes, they're sick and tired of the way government treats the citizens. So our trick today is how do we get out from under this, but in a manner that's not in a revolutionary type of setting? Because I, for one, don't want to go through a revolution, right? That's not the way to do it. To me, violent revolutions, that might work for a small time, but those very same evil actors are just going to find another way to set foot somewhere and become the new authority, right? So I'm saying, rather than revolutions, is we have to make the 21st century the time for intellectual evolution. Because if we get everyone's mind up to speed, just like that horse, if we can get that horse to realize, hey, you can be free if you want to be, then like I say, I can't guarantee the world. I can't promise anything to no one, but I can tell you that truth and knowledge is a powerful thing.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with you 100%. Yep.
Awesome, Karen.
Absolutely. And definitely. And my Civic Dictionary I see it as an attempt, because I don't think that it's the definitive Civic Dictionary, but I think it's it's something that can at least get the conversation started. You don't agree with that definition? Okay, then what is the definition? What do you see as the solution? So in a way, my Civic Dictionary is kind of like this little grain of sand that I'm throwing in the oyster, and the oyster has to polish it up and make it into a pearl.
Yes, no, I think that's a great idea. And like I say, I'm glad to have met you. And if you ever want to have another discussion at any point in time going forward, because I'll definitely be putting up more posts on ThinkSpot, try to get people's minds, churning. And like I say, if you want to have a conversation with me again anytime, I'll set the time aside for as long as you want, to break down whatever the kind of topics we're discussing, so that it is conducive for a multitude of people to pay attention to. Because that's the other thing too. I like the fact that, and even with yourself, you're articulating yourself properly without using a bunch of jargon or, legalese or, a lot of language that the layman doesn't really know. So to me, talking in just plain, English is what we're using today, in plain language, so that everybody can have access to this kind of knowledge. I think that's what we should be doing, and that's what we are doing. So thanks once again, and we'll have a conversation about whatever you want.
You're welcome, and thanks for inviting me.
Oh, not a problem, Karen. You have yourself a great day, okay? I'm going to actually stay on and answer some of the questions on the chat. So you have a great day. And if you want, actually, I'll mention this too. Actually, is there any websites or anything that you want me to link to the channel?
Oh, I'm still taking baby steps with a dictionary. So as soon as I have the dictionary done,
Okay.
I'm hoping I'll have a website and stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was just saying, because after this video gets processed, it'll be about a few hours. I can add stuff into the description so that if you want me to link anything to it, so that after people watch it, they can go to, like, if you have a website or anything yourself. But
I
if
have
not,
absolutely
then I'll
nothing,
just,
but thank you.
yeah. And you can also, if you want, you can download this video and re-upload it to, if you have your own YouTube channel, you can use it for whatever you see fit as well.
Okay,
All right.
super.
All right, Karen.
I've got your email now, so we can keep in touch that way.
Excellent. Yes, definitely keep in touch. You have yourself a great day. Okay.
All right. Thanks a lot, Bennett.
Okay. See you later.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay, so let me get back over to the comments, see what everyone's up to over here. Okay. What's going on, Rika? Oh, I got to scroll back up here, I guess. I went to, so that was a good conversation. I really enjoyed that. Like I say, Karen's from ThinkSpot. Meet some really great people on that website, and like I say, people with inquisitive and open minds. That's a beautiful thing. I love having people that want to discuss ideas that I can discuss them with. Okay, so hey, Rika, Maliki King, we wouldn't have crime if we worked more as communities. Most criminals are made out of poverty. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Luciferianism, one's rights are directly proportional to one's ability to defend them. Not that I agree with them, but it does seem to be that way in nature. Well, yeah, you have to be able to defend yourself. That's just the reality of life, right? The system isn't broken. Now the system functions exactly the way it's meant to, right? If stealing 100% of a man's labor is called slavery, then what is stealing 50% of a man's labor? Exactly, right? Half slavery? No, it's all slavery. It's just different layers or levels. Actually, is anyone out there? I've mentioned this before. If anyone wants to get another way to hear the story of human ownership or human subjugation in a manner that will help you, like help put some of the pieces of the puzzle together in terms of the 50% or 100% taxation, theft, and all this, is go to Larkin Rose. That's the name of his channel, Larkin Rose, and he has a video on his channel called The Jones Plantation. I highly, highly, highly recommend you check that one out. Well, there's lots of great videos on his channel, but that one in particular, it's a real eye opener. Really makes you think about things and put things into proper perspective. So, yeah, 100% agree with you there, Rika. Agree with you there. Political puppet theater. What's going on? It was built like that. Yeah, exactly. Ann and Steve G. Part-time slavery. Yeah, part-time. Stan. Fuck the system. Yeah. So still slavery. Yeah, exactly. Dave dismantled. Murder is an incorrect action, not a right. If humanity went extinct, that would still be true. That means right and wrong exist objectively. Yeah, I'm all for objective. Well, like I say, between Ayn Rand's objective philosophy, objectivism, the UPB, the non-aggression principle, yeah, it's, I mean, come on, that kind of morality, especially in terms of your negative rights, it's pretty easy to get through. If not for those who want to deny them. Boy, they really manipulate the language to make people confused, huh? Turtle Island Turtle. Most criminals are made by the fact that they don't want to be part of any system, want to make as much money, power as possible, and not pay any taxes. Wait a minute. Taxation is theft. So that's most criminals are made. So how do you become a criminal just because you, I mean, if you make as much money or power as possible, if you do it through voluntary means and never use preemptive force, violence, coercion, or theft towards someone, you know, have all kinds of power, right? Steve Jobs, or, well, he's not around anymore. Tim Cook. I mean, there's lots of guys have a lot of power, not government power, but a lot of power. Of course, their power is completely reliant on the voluntary relationship between that person and their employees, their customers, right? As long as it's all voluntary, a lot of people gain a lot of power. Power is not the problem. It's what they do with that power, right? That's the problem. And as far as, like I say, they're not paying the tax, that's just someone that's preventing theft, right? Or extortion. Good for that person. Hey, I try to do that all the time. Greatly reduce as much theft as humanly possible. The true criminals are the government. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Foreign aid is their vehicle to steal tax. Well, that's just one way. They've got a multitude of ways. Make no mistake about that. Just look through the tax code or the books of legislation. Ugh. Should have probably natural law does not protect. Natural law has to be protected. Yes, of course. Of course. All law, any law, whether it's verbal or written on parchment or paper, can't defend you at all. You got to do that. Or you better get someone that can do it for you, right? That's all. Sorry, but it's true. Okay. Government use violence, Karen, not force. Threats of force or violence depend on, yeah, it's all violence. The only reason why they, like, when people say, oh, well, they didn't use violence. Well, that's only because you submitted or you conformed, right? Try, if a cop's trying to arrest you for anything, even if it's an illegitimate crime, like we were suggesting, or something that should never be, try keep resisting. They'll escalate and escalate and escalate, right? So yeah, that force ultimately leads to violence if you do not submit or comply. That's what government is. So every time someone says, we need government for whatever it is you're saying we need to use force or threats of force or violence. That's what you're saying is you need to use a threat of force or violence to make your idea come to fruition. Must be a pretty bad idea if you got to use force, right? Think about how many things we do every day voluntarily that benefits us all tremendously. No force needed, right? Guess she's unaware of private courts that already exist. Yeah, private courts, exactly. Arbitration, that's all you need is arbitration, right? You don't have to set up a big giant monolith or mystical entity that has a monopoly of force or violence, to deal with disputes. This poor lady is so involved with herself. She is taking herself here. Geez, lighten up, relax, have some fun. Positive vibes. Yeah, positive vibes, BBZ, right on. Private security. Yeah, that private security company in Detroit. Awesome. I was it on Vice News or something? I saw something about there in Detroit. Really cool. Really cool. For not advised, but I think official blasphemy explained it well above. Our enemies only respect force. I am iron, but most here in exactly. Yeah. 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 If you can't be a threat yourself, you're gonna be a victim. Or you have the very real potential of being a victim. If you can't, just like the bullying in the schoolyard, right? They're going to pick on the weak, the helpless, the ones who will allow themselves to be victims. Yes, well, no, but she'll get to it. Like I say, she'll think back. Maybe she'll watch this again. I get, like, trying to tell people there's no such thing as legitimate government. That's a hard thing to deal with. That's like I say, if you're a very religious fundamentalist person or something, and someone telling you there's no such thing as God, it's it's going to take a little while to break free from that stuff. So I completely understand. I'm just very thankful that she was willing to listen. And, she pushed back and challenged me on my position, but she was respectful. I think it was a great conversation, to be honest with you. And like I say, I'm hoping that from each other from that. Not everyone knows how to defend themselves, martial arts, spinning back kicks, but that's where a gun, firearms. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I will now take this from your pocket. If you stop me, I'll be forced to defend myself. Yeah. Well, I'd be willing to defend myself too, right? I know millions of armed peeps. Good news is they sane. Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Most people are, right? I mean, look, there's over 300 million guns in the US, right? I mean, yeah, sure, there's violence and shootings that happen all the time. But if you take that as a percentage of that population, very, 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 very tiny, right? Very, very tiny. Clowns to the left, me jokes to the right. Here I am, though, Stefan. Nice. Anyone who wants your weapons wants your life also. Exactly. Never give up your weapons. Never give. Weeping as I behold my fellow man's devotion to political illusion and self-destruction. Yeah, I guess stop hanging over like that. Okay, so let's see here. Unless you don't have to have, yeah. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Pepper spray. Not trying to care. See if you get stuff. Marxist, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, definitely no Marxist. Well, I mean, that's the thing. There's probably a couple of things that you could find that Karl Marx said over the course of his life that even I might agree with. Like, it's a thing. Even a broken clock can be right twice a day. I mean, geez, some things that people say that are I'm completely opposed to most of the things they say. It's like, oh, they can be right once in a while, and when someone's right, they're right. I don't know. If Marx said something that I would tend to agree with, I would even admit as such. Doesn't matter to me. Doesn't mean I agree with the man's ideology. That's for sure. Carry it at 3 a.m. with black clothes on a rich neighborhood. See what happens. Yeah. It's okay. I also doubt humanity. Even Bill Cooper at the end said that most sheep will be sheep. Most lack the capacity to understand the individual responsible. Yes, that's true. That is true, unfortunately. It's not illegal to have a hammer. Yeah, a bag of tools in your front seat can make you. That's so true, right? It's not illegal. You just have to prove you're a contractor. Yeah. Anarcho-communism and other challenges to libertarians. I might have to check that out here. Anarcho-communism. Oh, Tom Woods, episode 1606. I'll have to keep that in mind. Maybe check it out. Yeah, let's check that out. Actually, like if I go to click on it, I can't copy the link. Bummer. Okay, so maybe I'll just write it down. So Tom Woods, episode 1606. Thanks for the suggestion there, Rika. Tom Woods, episode 1606. Right on. I'll check that out, Rika. Tom's pretty cool. Yeah. Yep, I would like to think most here don't actually give a rat's ass, but most laws, especially dumb ones, trying to subdue your ability to survive. Yeah. I live my life morally, but not based on government edicts, right? No thanks. The left are so close to their satanic dream, yet can see it. I know. Our priors are not judges harshly. Okay, pseudo. She steers. Can't really well not. Oh, that must have been hard for her neck because yeah, that camera was way up there, wasn't it? Holy jumping. That's too bad. True anarchy is right living in the world based upon the body of knowledge known as natural law. Yeah. I tend to agree with that. To a degree, like I say, people do need some kind of moral guidance, and that's where philosophy or religion, plays a very key and pivotal role. And natural law would be a direct result and consequence of philosophy, obviously. So yeah, I would tend to agree with that. Like I say, there has to come a time when we don't have to rely on any mysticism whatsoever to have universal secular ethics, which is something that Stephen Molyneux has been working on for a while with his UPB. How that's going to turn out in the future, I don't know. But humans do have to have, because morality is a construct that we humans invented to create more peaceful societies, right? If we all lived in the state of nature, man, you can make excuses or reasons to do a lot of really terrible things. Survival of the fittest and protect and help who you can. Fuck tax slave. Survival of the fittest. I'm not all for survival of the fittest. And actually, tell you the truth, in under that scenario, I would be fine. Right? So I would do great under survival of the fittest, but no, I care about other people, and I actually do have empathy for people that can be victims. And I would choose to be a protector of many of those people, and under a voluntary means, under voluntary contract, and under any kind of voluntary system. All lots of things. Hard to say a system if it's voluntary, right? But I guess you still could kind of use that terminology. But yeah, not so much on the. I kind of get what you're saying there a little bit, but no, I don't want to leave the weak and the vulnerable, to their own devices, or to be helpless against tyranny or authoritarians or crooks or criminals, right? We need to bring back reciprocity and proprietarianism and all the BS. And all this BS is not unviable. Well, where's Larkin? Oh, hey, what's going on, Steve? I see Steve in the chat there. Yeah, Larkin's pretty good, man. He's got some good stuff. Say another great video of his is The Complete and Undeniable Truth. Another really good one. I highly recommend the 9-hour natural law seminar. Actually, that was recommended to me one time, and I did watch. I forget how long I get into it, but I didn't go the whole nine hours on that thing there. But there was some stuff in there that I found somewhat interesting. Freedom and responsibility are related 100%. When folks put responsibility on the government, they live on their own. Exactly. Well said, official blasphemy. Well said. I would agree. Small government is needed. Large government is evil. I agree with that as well. And at this point, if we could even just get the small government, hey, I'm on board, right? Like I keep saying, even to the minarchist libertarians, it's like, I don't believe in the state, but hey, if you want to try your hand at shrinking or containing that thing, let's go for it, right? It'll probably want to pop out of that box sooner or later, or you'll never get to that point because there's a lot of corruption that's going to, take holds of those who are in those reigns or positions of power. But hey, like I say, if we want to try the political route, well, even with the People's Party of Canada, right, and Maxime, hey, go ahead. I'm always willing. Hey, any endeavor that seeks to reduce as much violence, coercion, or theft that takes place under government today is, yeah, let's try that, right? Well, as long as you're not using force. Unless that force is a means of defense, to defend yourself against threats or imminent threats. Totally on board with that. But yeah, if the political, acolytes that want to be libertarians or go into politics and run for a political party, people like, Tim Moen Tim Moen is as much as a genuine full-on libertarian, or some people like to call anarchist, as I am. But he recognizes that politics is a reality. It is something that unfolds every few years. The mindless minions, they go and check that ballot, right? So, yes, if you want to be a disruptor in some way, then I'm on board. Which is why I did support the PPC. Although now, yeah, I'm more leaning towards now, like, if you're going to go into the political adventure, and that was that video I watched of Tim Moen, and then we had a discussion about it. The radicalism is, why pussyfoot or water things down? Not now, Maxime, the hilarious part is, for most Canadians, right, that don't listen to people like myself, Maxime was outrageous. And in reality, it's like, he's pretty middle of the road, right? In terms of like someone like myself or Tim Moen in the kind of things that we would talk about or have, to say if we were on that big stage, the political stage, or had the media in our face, right? Maxime's pretty because he actually is more conservative, right? Or conservative or somewhat libertarian leaning in certain aspects. So, but you see how, man, the Canadian people they're like, it's too, I guess, it didn't embolden people like myself a whole lot. And I tried to get excited, but it wasn't nearly as inspirational as it should have or could have been. And then the fence sitter types are like, well, it's a good challenge against the status quo, but look at the majority, the bulk, the masses. They rejected it entirely, wholly. And not only did they reject it, and they went overboard to the point where they just calling Maxime, calling him a racist. That Kinsella or whatever, Warren Kinsella, or what the hell his name is there, whatever that fucking doofus there or whatever that, did all the hit pieces on Maxime Bernier, tried to take him out, right? So no, if you're going to tell the truth, tell the whole truth, the unbridled truth, and don't fucking apologize for it, right? That's the thing. Stop being meager or measly mouthed, right? Even Maxime is a little bit meek and measly mouthed when you're talking about things, which is why that playing that middle ground is not helping anyone as far as I'm concerned. You're not getting the status on board, and you're not really truly inspiring people like myself or the genuine libertarians of the world, right? Or even the minarchists. I mean, you're like I say, no, go if you believe in ideas and principles, then go full on. Don't pussyfoot. Don't water it down. Just go full on, which is why, like I say, if the election comes, let's say, the Trudeau Liberals, because they're a minority, there's a vote of confidence and we go to election again. Well, it won't be the PBC. Not that I have anything against the PBC folks, but I noticed that, yeah, there's a few libertarians that ended up supporting the PBC, but overwhelming majority of them that I ended up talking or conversing with were just conservatives. They just want another conservative government. Maybe a little bit smaller than what the current government is, or maybe especially in terms of immigration or whatever, but they still love their big government. They still love government just as much as everyone else. They just don't like the current style or form of government, the liberal government. They want their own form of conservatism, which, hey, go ahead and do your thing. But as a libertarian, yeah, I'm not fucking watering down my message or playing second fiddle to nobody. Most of these people that actually I interviewed or have YouTube channels got their start by listening and watching my fucking videos. Mine. Yeah, long before any of these people, and now they all want to, like I say, play center stage. Well, go ahead and play with your statism. Do your little thing, but yeah, I'm moving over to the place where ideas take place, not gossiping, not worrying about people based on their skin color or talking about the Jews and all of that shit that isn't going to do one bit of good in terms of getting us out from under this kind of authoritarianism. No, I'm going to gravitate to the people that really genuinely not just understand and care about liberty, but can properly articulate it and defend it with the proper use of the language, right? Instead of keeping people in the doldrum and confused into this. How big should the state be? How much theft should there be? How much slavery should we have today? That's just, no. Come out there and just say straight up, slavery is bullshit, right? And that's what Tim Moen would do, which is why, yeah, if I'm gonna have any delve my foot again into the political waters to support a political party, it will be the Libertarian Party of Canada. And like I say, it'll be much more inspiring, and I think get me more hyped to do so than the kind of mushy thing we were doing under the PBC. Because, like I say, I just ended up getting popular with a lot of people that, tell you the truth, in real life, I wouldn't be friends with them, most of them, not at all. So I kind of have to reinvent the wheel a little bit here again, but it's all good. Anyways, gone on a little bit of a rant there, huh? I'm out. And Steve must have heard me. No, I'm just kidding. What time is it here anyways? No, that was 15 or half hour ago. So have a good one, Ann and Steve. Personal accountability. One final note. God bless Annan. Fuck the government. Oh, good one. Nice. Said beings must always be based upon mutual consent as soon as the beings correspondence is being committed. Agree, Dave. I agree. Okay, let's see what's going on. John Mark YouTube has info. According to avoiding Theo Von Canada is a big friendly hat keeping the snow. Theo Von, I've seen that guy. He's a comedian. He's pretty funny, I guess, a couple times. I don't want Corona. Government has shown the destruction it can cause. Yeah, exactly. Individuals or small groups can't compete with that. The 20th century alone, if you're worried about the petty thief, right? Come on. Yeah, look at what government's done. Exactly. Well said, Dave. Agree with you there, buddy. I'm still. History proves that libertarianism and anarchy has failed. Where are they? Where are they? Well, just yes. Right now, the belief is state. That's what's failed is people's belief. That's the thing, right? You set up the scenario where like I love using like the pretense of religion instead of the state, because they both basically like they are a religion. They're a cult, right? It's a belief in something completely mystical. So it's like saying, it's like let's say you were someone that come from a religious background. Instead of setting up a new state, you set up a new church, but you're against religion, right? You're like, the Catholic, no, they're all tricking you. They're all full of shit. Their God is mystical. It's bullshit. It's all lies, right? And same with the Protestants. All the same thing. In Christianity, oh yeah, it's all built on bullshit, lies, and mysticism. That's what it is, right? And Islam, same thing. Judaism, all these religions, yeah, they're all mystical. They're all bullshit. No, we got to reject religion, right? That's what a limited government person would be, right? We got to get rid of, right, the King of England, and we don't want to be tyrannized by. So we'll go over here, right? Set up our own little thing, our own little church, right? Well, wait a minute. I thought you said you were against religion, but you're over here setting up. But this, no. This church, listen, let me tell you, this church, everybody gets to. You don't even have to do tithing in this church, right? No tithing whatsoever. You can come and go voluntarily, but we are your authority. Just remember that we're going to be your authority. Don't worry, we're the final authority here. We are going to be the new religion, but don't worry, we're going to keep our religion so restricted and so contained, right? Like that's the logic. Right? Now, at the time, I kind of realized, like, this is what they were functioning with, in the 17 and 1800s. This is. Yeah, eliminating the state entirely probably wasn't going to come to fruition or anything that's going to happen at that particular time. But like a couple hundred years later, and the internet age, we should at least be getting a little bit further past that, right? And like I say, the only way you can have any kind of libertarian society or any part of the geographical area on this planet where it is libertarian wholly is if you get enough people to think outside the box of statism, to get outside the religion entirely, right? Because, yeah, they're just going to want to set up their own little state. And the minute you set up that little state, now it'll take a while, right? You'll enjoy some freedoms, especially the people that set up the little state or the new church, right? It'll be good for a while, but eventually you're still going to end up with a big, giant cathedral or a big, giant state, right? So the trick is stop setting up states. Stop setting up these pretenses, these entities of authority, right? That has the power or the supposed authority to control millions of people, to dictate and control every aspect of their social and economic life. Because that's what's going to happen the minute you've placed that exception and given someone the ability to be government, right? That's what happens. The minute you create that exception, well, there's your entrance point. That is your entrance point. How you eliminate the potential of the state is you don't give anyone that entrance point. And that entrance point is the mysticism, is the belief in the state, in the belief in that authority. Just like people today, good luck imagine trying to convince people, oh no, slavery is legit, man. Slavery's, hey, it's totally legal. What do you mean? Of course you can own people, right? Yeah, I got a few myself, right? Could you imagine someone saying that today, that's alive today in the 21st century, and let's say Canada or the US, everyone would be like, what are you, fucking insane? Why? Because they don't believe in slavery anymore. It's been wiped out of their mind. It's no longer a concept in their brain that they would deem it to be legitimate, right? How did slavery end? Who cares? Like, there's lots of different ways. But the reason why it's not coming back, or at least in the form that it had, is because people know now what it is. They recognize it for what it is and say, never again. That's what has to happen in terms of the state. Never again. Once you've removed that concept out of people's mind and they recognize it and they can see it for what it is, that cold beast for what it is, yeah, they're not going to allow that ever again. Or at least most people won't. Some might want to try it, but as long as the most people are unwilling to allow it and understand and recognize it for what it is, well, like I say, there's always the potential, but that's your best case scenario. Because the minute you've created an environment where you give a monopoly of force or violence to anybody or any group, well, like I say, start your stopwatch. Time's a ticking, and the state's going to grow proportionally, and you're going to end up right back in the same place with a big old government controlling and dictating every aspect of your social and economic life like we are today. As Fred Woodworth stated, if human beings are fundamentally good, no government is necessary. Exactly. I like this one. Let me read this one here. If they're fundamentally bad, any government being composed of human beings would be bad also, right? So simple. I mean, if you said this to like a kid, that has never been indoctrinated into the religion or the faith of the state be like, well, duh. Well, yeah. Hello. Huh? Right. Meanwhile, you got millions of adults here in Canada that you tell them that's like, well, what are you talking about? What do you mean? We need government, right? It's like, that's the power of indoctrination, right? That's why freeing the mind is so important, which is what I try to do on an everyday, regular basis. Not, well, yeah, actually every day. And people say, well, what are you doing to change things? Oh, no, I'm not petitioning or protesting. I'm not holding up a sign. I don't think that's going to do a whole lot. But trust me, what I do has the potential to greatly affect and help a tremendous lot of people. Well, like I say, you can lead a horse to water, can't make it drink. Just like that horse. You can tell the horse, hey, that cord's only barely laying on that chair. It's not even tied to it. Man, you can take off. But if that horse doesn't understand what you're saying, it's like, oh, you just want to stay here till the master comes and sit on me again. It's good stuff. Thanks. Hey, thanks for everyone that's joined the chat, though. This is pretty cool. I'm enjoying myself today. Like I say, it's good to have, like I say, it's good to, I think I'm back into the spot where I want to be, having the right kind of people on the streams, on the chats. Love you guys. Really do. And not having to get into, like I say, I felt I was degrading myself there for a while. And I was losing some of my own freedoms. I felt like I was confining myself to try to appeal to too many people. And I don't like doing that. I like the fact that you people accept me for who I am with all my faults and fallibilities. And I do the same, because one thing that we share in common is our pursuit of knowledge and liberty. And that, man, that's a powerful thing to rather gather around or rally around, right? We someone to keep, yeah. We someone to keep libertarianism alive. Once I get libs in the right direction, I'll send them to you. Right? Hey, yeah, left or right. Like I say, I actually like talking. I'm going to try, because ThinkSpot has people from all kinds of backgrounds, like lefties, righties, centrists, they would say. But I'm kind of hoping that I can get like a Marxist, or someone that's a big promoter of state. Actually, tell you the truth, some of these people aren't even really into statism. They've just been taught the wrong things, and which is why I'd love to have a conversation with them and hopefully see if we can't find some common ground. I believe I can find a ton of common ground with a lot of people that are disenfranchised with the state that would identify on the left side of the political spectrum. I'm freaking sure of it. If only you can find ones that are reasonable enough to discuss ideas and to listen, right? The only system that allows anyone with skills, hard work, no skills needed to climb the social ladder. Yeah. Right on. Right on. The illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. Nice. Good one, Rika. Rika's on a roll. You go, girl. Oh, that's awesome, actually. Yeah. Will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn and learn. Oh, so true, Rika. So true. Oh, that is not only an excellent quote, but it's so profoundly true. It's so profoundly true. It's why, like I say, it's so important, which is why you got to come at it the hardcore way. You got to say, hey, don't pussyfoot about it. Santa Claus ain't real. The state is not legitimate. Then you can get into a conversation, a discussion, and an argument, a debate. But yeah, start out forthful, be honest and forthright, and pique people's interest. I find kind of, just barely dipping your toes in the water. I mean, maybe with some people, that's the other thing, actually. What am I saying? There's lots of different ways or methods that you can use depending on the particular person, because, we are all individuals. Some people, maybe need different ways to be taught or have information present them in different manners. Karen, she obviously likes to see everything in text form, and I totally get that. And actually, what's crazy? Don't want to take my horn too much, but I've written some pretty good stuff, and pretty good writer if I want to be. I've had people say, "Oh, you should write a book," and I just don't like writing. I don't know what it is. Is it because I'm a guy? No, because there's lots of guys. I mean, coders, Christ, that's what they do all day long. So no, I just have no idea why. I just am not a fan of typing. When I'm typing, it's like, oh man, well, what it is, I think it's like, I could have said that in like 10 seconds and here I am. Well, that's another thing. I'm not exactly super proficient at typing too. That might play a role in it. Clang, 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 clang. Right. Actually, I can do okay. I can do two hands a little bit, but yeah, not nearly as proficient at typing as I am at speaking. I tend to talk quite a lot, so I'm pretty good at it. Or at least that's what I tell myself. State schools would never indoctrinate people into statism. That's a good one. If mothers, who's your daddy? What? Who's your daddy? What? Oh, wait, I seen Rika shared something else up here. Okay. Oh, Nozick, Robert Nozick, The Tale of the Slave by Robert Nozick. Cool. Yeah, that's probably a good one too. Yeah, anyone that's watching the stream, check out some of the links that Rika's posting up there, because I'm sure it's probably some pretty good stuff. I haven't seen it myself, I don't think. No, I don't think so. People that are taxed are victims of criminals. Yep, they sure are. Corruption is truth and lies, good and evil twisted through the power of distribution. Yeah, well, yes. Orwellian, right? Homeschooling, for sure. Homeschooling's a good idea. There's a board of investigation of hinge schooling. Cast fishing line. Joe Connor. All energy is in constant distribution and transformation, even social energy. Yeah. I think I would tend to agree with that, I would imagine. Yeah. We are being used like gas in a tank. Yeah. Droopy 82. Hey, Bennett, just stopping by to say hi. Hope your day is going well. Hey, thanks, Droopy 82. Appreciate the picture of Homer. That's awesome. Yeah, doing well. Thanks for dropping by real quick there, Droopy 82. Appreciate it. If you want, you can check back later. I had a pretty good discussion with the lady Karen that I had on earlier from ThinkSpot. They manipulate society like electricity is manipulated by electricians. Matt Dugas. Words are defined according to context, not Webster's. Words are of man. God and family speak in heart of mind. Well, the thing is, I didn't say Webster's per se, but words actually do have meanings, right? I didn't say you have to use Webster's dictionary per se, but I'm saying that words have defined meanings, right? They're not subjective, right? You can't just like if it was just subjective what words and terms meant, then when you say good, I could say, well, hey, my interpretation of the word good is bad. Like it means it's not. That's the thing. Use the word. It's the opposite of that, right? And it means something totally different. That it's wet. Let's say I could use the word good and it means that it's wet in some way. Well, no, it doesn't. Well, that's how I interpret it. I mean, you have to. That's what I mean. It's not the dictionary that I'm saying you have to use, but the reason why we can communicate in this language we're speaking, English, is because we all at least have a general grasp or understanding of what the meanings of the words that we use or in our sentence structure or when we're talking to each other, right? So like that's all I'm saying. You don't have to overthink things, right? It's not pointing out to a particular dictionary. I'm just saying, and yes, words, there's slang, right? But how that functions, like how we can have proper communication, is if we at least understand what these words mean. There has to be base rules, right? It's like with anything. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying is there has to be baseline definitions for words. You can't just make it up to be whatever you want it. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Okay. What's this? If you wear a house coat and puff on a pipe, you might enjoy time. Yeah, maybe. Doubt it though. I doubt it. I'm just not a fan of it. Damn, I don't know why. I just don't like it. I'd rather live under the authority of a state than that of a global government. Well, it's just picking lessers of evils, right? Well, at least that evil is closer to you, right? So, yeah, if given the choice between like a national state or a global government, yeah, I would probably suggest that, the national state. At least it's closer to home, right? I don't know. Again, that'd probably be about the only thing I can say that. Easier to get your hands on them. They go too tyrannical or whatever. I don't know. Like what? I reject them all. Right? It's like, do you want a master that beats you 10 times a day, or do you want a master that beats you 1 time a day? Well, of course, given that option, it's like, I'll take the 1 beating. Thanks. But am I going to be happy with that? No, not until I'm not getting any beatings from a master. Not until I don't have a master, right? Then that's what I'm promoting, is no masters. Lessers of evils is kind of what places us in the position we are today. That's the thing. Everyone thinks they're picking the lesser of evil, but what happens throughout the course of governments, as every election season that goes by, whether it's every 4 years in the US or 4 or 5 years in Canada, let's say, every election season or government that goes by, whether it's liberal, conservative, NDP, is we're all not necessarily we, because I don't do much for voting. I've only voted that 1 time federally last election, basically. But all the people that are voting, they're voting, right? Think about it. They're all thinking, they perceive anyways, that they're voting for the lesser of evils based on whichever party they pick. And the majority, so based on whichever party that wins power, the majority of people that gave them that power under the first past the post system are saying, hey, I picked the lesser of evil. But what has happened as a result? Go back to the 70s to today, right? 50 years later, right? From 1970 to 2020, 50 years later, all that voting for smaller or limited government, or reducing the size and scope of government, or the lesser of evil, but evil has only been continually increasing, maybe at a different rate than otherwise, but evil is still increasing every day. Government's still growing every day. Government is bigger today than it was 10 years ago. And it was bigger 10 years ago than it was back in the 1970s. And it was bigger in the 1970s than it was in the 1950s. Government continues to grow, and it will, until, like I say, revolution, or what I'm hoping for is an intellectual evolution. Government is not going away. And the picking of less of evils is, you're still going to get a lot of evil. And it may be lesser than the other guy was offering, but then you got to think about this too. Actually, maybe if you brought in more evil, here, let me try this for a little pushback. Maybe we should be voting, although I wouldn't necessarily agree with this. I'm just bringing this up as a hypothetical. Maybe we should all go vote for the most authoritarian party, right? So that we can get this shit finally done and over with, right? So we can pull that Band-Aid off finally. Because everyone's like, well, at least by keeping the evil lesser than what it could have been, well, now you're still maintaining the state. Let's get all that evil out there in the open, right? Then we can see it for what it is, and then we're like, oh, okay, now I recognize it. It's just thinking out loud, folks. Just thinking out loud. Don't complicate things if you know what they mean. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, to me, it's very important for me when I'm trying to learn any particular topic or subject. I want to be proficient enough in it that I can explain it so simplistic that anyone would understand. And that's not only does that give me clarity in my own mind, but hopefully will offer clarity to the other person that will hear what I've got to say. So yeah, I agree. No spell check. Apparently not. They got addicted to spying on us while we entertain ourselves online. Yeah. Let me see what this is. But some took YouTube as a free university and got more informed than their own children and realized it needed to be shut down. But, well, that's the thing. Yeah. A lot of that I would say is true on multiple fronts. Yeah. Like I used it, like even social media. I kind of rejected using it for even personal uses really early on, because I noticed the personal Facebook pages, like it's kind of weird and awkward at times. Like even people are showing picture of themselves all the time in different poses, or a picture of their food, right, or stuff, or their cat or stuff. I mean, how many times? I mean, that's okay. It's okay, but it doesn't get as much in terms of dialogue or engagement. But what I recognize, yes, social media. Oh, well, yeah, you could use it for sharing a picture of your cat or selfies, but holy Christ, yeah, look at what other power it comes with. Look what else. You can use it as a disruptor entirely to the establishment in the media platforms, like, cable, radio, television, things like that. So yeah, I agree. Yeah. These things can be used for many multiple purposes, and I use them for what purpose I deem them most worthy for. Troop 82. Thumbs up. Bennett, I recommend purchasing Larkin's online candles in the dark seminar. I'll check it out. Maybe Rika. Purchasing sounds like it has to do with money, and that's something I'm very short of these days. Because that was the thing. After all the people that were more into the politics, you know, the thousands of people that were watching my videos during the PBC, they've all abandoned me. So I'm down to basically not getting any money from YouTube. Well, I mean, it takes a couple months now, 2 to 3 months to even get a payout, because they won't pay you till $100. So, and I'm not in a position to have any employment opportunities at this particular time. I will probably within a month or so, hopefully, and then I can hopefully get myself in a better situation. Well, that's the thing, though. If I go work full time, can I do this stuff? I've tried it, and a lot of you guys that have been following me for years and know it's really difficult. It's really difficult, because it's not just a matter of the time you record the videos. I mean, you got to spend the time learning, be knowledgeable on all these things, and current on all the events. And I got to have a home life. That's the other thing too. Is like, it'd be different if I was single. And I'm not single. I got a lady that I love and I like to spend time with and stuff. So anyways, never mind that. 1970, just a few extra services and restriction couldn't hurt. 2020, you're not allowed to disagree with giving me free stuff. Exactly. Yeah. That was the year I was born, actually, 1970. And from then, well, 1 year later, and then especially after they severed the gold standard, like Nixon severed, and the governments then at that time, governments and the central banks, like, oh, not only can we practice Keynesianism, but now we can practice Keynesianism on steroids with no limits or restrictions, basically. It's like, oh, yeah, no wonder, right? We're in the situation we are today. That's the other thing. People got to take back control of their value, right? Which is money. People got to gain back control. Now there's, like I say, online blockchains like cryptocurrencies. There's gold, silver. There's the black market. There's all kinds of ways that you can avoid government fiat currencies, because that's the government fiat currencies are ripping you off every day. It's like inflation is a stealth tax that most people don't even understand. They don't even grasp that inflation is eroding their purchasing power every single day. And actually, it's affecting their psychology, even though they don't realize it. Why do you think people are out consuming, mass consumption? If interest rates in the bank were like 10, 12%, and there wasn't this constant push of the devaluing of the currency or mass amount of cheap consumable goods brought here from China, people would be like, well, why would I buy all that crap when I can stash my money in my bank account and it'll grow for me? I could actually have an actual retirement plan that works for me, not against me, right? Why would anyone save money today? If you're saving money, that money's being eroded. Whether you got stuffed under your mattress, in a bank account, no matter what you're doing. If you got fiat currency today, it's the purchasing power is being eroded on a continued basis. So it's like, spend it as quickly as possible, right? Creator backs good intent. That's why the West is so hard to bring down. Creator backs good. They have been sucking every resource and tax they can think of, and we still somehow managed to be successful. We are. Well, I mean, that's the thing. Yeah, even though a thief can plunder the productive resources of people, that's the thing. We're so productive, and there's so much resource that we provide. It's like people are willing to put up with that much theft, right? It's crazy. If we ever get free, we could build something so big and beautiful, they would never be able to bring it down again. Well, that's the thing. If you can get it going, if you can show that all it takes is that one example, that's all that needs to take place, is to show one example, right? And then people see, oh, so you can do it. It's not fiction. It's not an impossibility. Damn it, I can have clothes without having slaves on the plantation, right? I can make sure that cotton is picked without the slaves having to do so, right? Nobody would have believed that stuff prior to, the ending of slavery either. But look at, so yes, once we've got that one experiment that we can point to and say, yes, see, this is what it is to live in a libertarian society, then once you get that first one, like I say, Yeah, you'll be the leader. You'll be the one out in front, but you're gonna see a whole lot of people following you after that, right? It's like, oh, look, where did everybody come from? I thought you guys were all statists. What's up with that? Oh, you're not statists no more. Okay, come on. What? You got to stay away from the statist mindset, though. Come on in. Come on. All right. Actually, set up your own little libertopia over there. Maybe you'll do a better job than us. Maybe we can compete against each other, right? See who can have the most freedom, right? What? Of course. Let's get her done, folks. Let's get her done. Gonna buy up a bunch of land. Well, if I had some money, I would try it out. See what the state would do. What are you gonna do? Charge me for having property and doing things peacefully, not stealing from everybody? Canadian National Retirement Plan, picking the scraps out of garbage cans in order to survive. Yeah. Anyways, looks like everyone's kind of slowing down there now. Terry M. So anyways, thanks for everyone that's joined the stream. I really appreciate it. I believe I got a couple more no, not a couple. I think it's just one next weekend. I'll have to double check on that though. Like I said, I've been in conversation with a few people, but it's getting the timing and the scheduling right. It's not quite so easy. Because the bad thing about ThinkSpot is it doesn't have an embedded messaging service just yet. Actually, me and Karen, like I had to put on one of my posts up there. I had to post my emails so that she could find me that way. It's not that difficult to do that, so not the end of the world. Anyways, like I say, appreciate everyone that showed up to the chat, and it'll probably be next weekend, but usually it'll be roughly around the same time. So just keep your eye open for me. And maybe if I get enough notice in advance, I'll put a community post to give you a little bit of heads up warning beforehand. So maybe a few other people will join too. No problem, E Sharp. You have yourself a great day, and everyone else too. Rika and all the rest of you. PP. Oh, thanks, PP. On a string. Great topic and discussion. I love reading the comments. Yeah, awesome. Thank you very much for joining the stream and checking out the comments. So everyone have yourself a great day. And like I say, we'll see you in the next stream. It's Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.